I'm going to make some predictions for the next year and a half ahead. And hopefully, you watched my last video where I talked about what has been going on the last year and a half, because it really gives context to, just recap the energy that we're bringing into this next year and a half transit with the nodes shifting on January 11th from Aries and Libra into Pisces and Virgo. So make sure that you watch that if you haven't seen it already. But assuming you have, let's get into it. I've got three main predictions. Prediction number one is that we're going to have more of a spiritual awakening with the North Node in Pisces. I think that people are going to start learning to trust their intuition more and become a lot more empathic. They're also going to start leaning more upon a moral compass or developing it. And, it could get a little out there over the next year and a half, especially considering we've got Pluto and Aquarius during this entire time. And that's probably, those combined energies is probably going to bring in a lot more talk and disclosures and awareness about things like, really far out stuff like aliens and other dimensional entities. And I do think those of you that are into astrology and you really dig in my astrological predictions, I think, that's going to become more mainstream, because I know a lot of people closet watch this stuff, right? I used to do that as well. But I think that that's going to be less of a thing over the next year and a half. More and more people are going to start knowing what their top three are, right? Your sun, moon, rising placements. That's going to become more commonplace. And maybe you're going to feel less weird about talking about these things out in the open. But I think also another thing is that we're also learning how to be okay, not just with the weird stuff and the far out stuff, but learning how to be okay with not being okay, and just going with the flow of some things that seem a little different or out there. I think also, though, there's going to be more development of a moral compass, as I said before, and this is after generations of arguably moral degeneracy, people getting into moral relativity where, anything goes practically, and not wanting to judge and discern right from wrong from a spiritual perspective. And when I say this, I'm not really necessarily talking about being religious, although there will be some people that take that path with the North Node in Pisces, maybe even becoming more into Christianity or Christ consciousness. But I think what is going to be the even greater overarching energy is that people are going to become more discerning about choices in their lives, in their everyday lives, that actually produce good outcomes that are for the highest good of all, not just self or the greater good, but the highest good from an internal perspective. With the South Node in Virgo during this time, we're going to see loss of structures within government and health care initially. Okay, I'm going to talk more in my next video about what exactly that's going to look like, particularly for Americans. But in a nutshell, areas in life where people have had a sense of false security in authority, in officials, whether they're in corporations or in government agencies, we are going to have to start relying upon a higher power other than government and even healthcare officials. Okay, we're going to have to resolve this tension that I think we're going to start feeling more and more of over this year and a half. Tension between idealism and realism in your everyday life. For example, especially in terms of, how we imagine that government and healthcare is supposed to operate versus how it actually operates. During this time frame, we're going to see a major purge of workers, particularly healthcare workers, people working in big med, big pharma, big ag is even going to be affected. And I think we can most relate this to the MAHA movement with RFK. But I think as well, we will see a purge of a lot of government service workers with DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going to be cutting a lot of government agencies. So we are going to see a loss of jobs occurring over the next year and a half. By the way, I would like to put out more predictions about people who work in that field, with health and healthcare predictions over the next year and a half. And if you'd like to hear those predictions, particularly for 2025, make sure that you give me a comment, a like, or something to let me know that you're actually interested in that content. But when you start seeing the dissolution or the dissolving of these entities, these agencies, these officials, and these lines of work, basically, the absence of these structures in our lives that we've come to kind of depend upon or see as dependable and reliable and trustworthy, what's going to happen is that people are going to have to start developing more inner security, because the outer security is not going to be there like it was before, even though arguably it was an illusion. We're going to find that out. So we're going to have to go within and seek a higher power to find more security. And yes, during this time, some people will rely upon religion, which to me I define as rules and rituals. But you may see people getting more into that because that sense of some kind of structure or order gives a person a feeling of security. And if they're lacking that from within and they're unable to develop the inner security, they'll seek that outer security within the rules and rituals and structures of organized religion. In a nutshell, this axis of Virgo and Pisces brings up themes of increased focus on health and healing, and also service to self and others. In terms of healing, I think that we're going to see more of a shift towards holistic healing and even mental health care. Again, there's going to be an increased focus on what's for the highest good of all. And this is forcing us to rebalance our material versus spiritual values, and also our sense of serving self and other, finding some kind of middle ground, common ground, and not going to extremes or being naive about it. So, word of caution, over the next year and a half, as the North Node is in Pisces, be aware that some people are going to feel lost. They're going to feel not anchored or grounded into a reality. And so you're going to have to work extra hard to stay grounded in reality and, not get lost in any kind of escapism or passivity or self-sabotaging behavior, because also along with the feeling lost is maybe confusion or disillusioned about some things in life. And so it'll be really important to have strong personal boundaries, because if you don't, the karma on that could be quite severe with Saturn and Aries. Personal responsibility, people will be held account to that. My advice is take the higher road, take the road less traveled. And that's the road or the path of self-love, self-care, spiritual growth, doing your shadow work, figuring out how you sabotage, how you self-sabotage, how you get in your own way of living up to your highest potential. And basically during this year and a half, be your best advocate and encourage others to do the same.